Ukraine was one of the founders of the Soviet Union during Soviet times. Ukraine got its current geographical configuration. At the end of this stage, Ukraine was a multicultural entity. On the one hand, the east and some central areas were predominantly Russian speaking. Meanwhile, the west was very regular. None of the Ukrainian leaders has been able to carry out a successful strategy that brings together such diverse sentences. These differences and disagreements have multiplied. The Russian-speaking Ukraine began to feel disappointed with the policy of Ukrainization and leaned toward Russia. While the Ukrainian-speaking Hungarians and Romanians share similar sentiments and form an alliance with their respective countries of origin. In recent years, many Russian and Ukrainians have felt that the Orthodox faith is the only connection left between these two countries, and that it is cherished with immense cordiality to this day. The trigger for this war was the expansion of NATO and the military development of the territory of Ukraine by the alliance. Russia did not like this. This crisis is the Russian refusal to accept the alliance of NATO and the Europe Union with the former Soviet Republic, which Moscow considers part of its identity and its space of influence, and whose control it deems vital for its security. Putin believes that both countries make up one people.
Ukraine is a sovereign country since it obtained independence with the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. The country is located in Eastern Europe, and the form of government is the Republic. This is governed by a semi-presidential system with the separation of power between the executive, legislative, and judicial. Its territory is organized into 24 oblasts, regions, or provinces, an autonomous Republic Crimea, and two municipalities with a special status: Kiev, the capital, and Sevastopol, which is home to the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Ukraine has 44.5 million inhabitants. 2.3 million reside in Crimea. 78% of whom are ethnic Ukrainians, with sizable minorities of Russians, Belarusians, and Romanians. The official language is Ukrainian, and since 2012, Russian has acquired co-official status in some regions. The dominant religion in the country is Orthodox Christianity. In extension, it's the second largest country on the European continent. Geographically, it occupies a strategic place as it is located between two important markets, Russia and the European Union. It is also located in a place of passage, both by land and by sea. Ukraine is rich in arable land and mineral resources, with a highly developed but outdated and inefficient industrial base, steel, chemicals. After 70 years as part of the Soviet Union, Ukraine declared independence on August 24, 1991, which was confirmed by a popular referendum in December of the same year by an overwhelming majority. Ukraine is at a tragic point since it connects Russia with other European countries, and which throughout this country distribute gas to Europe. For Russia, the Ukraine territory is very important also because Ukraine has fertile land. Regarding the armed conflict, in April 2021, there was a worrying increase in tension in the area, with a notable increase in Russian troops on the border. In Crimea and in the Black Sea, the tension was lowered later, when Russia withdrew some of these troops from the border. But the threat remains latent. Ukraine is a country divided between the pro-Russian East and the pro-European West. It seems that Russia's goal is for the conflict to fester, causing instability in Ukraine indefinitely. Ukraine needs and requests the support of Western countries in this conflict.
Mr. Malpass, the president of the World Bank, saying the economic impact of the war stretches beyond Ukraine's borders, and the rises in global energy prices in particular hits the poor the most and thus inflation. Food prices have also been pushed off by the war and are a very real consideration and problem for people in poor countries. Mr. Malpass points out that both Russia and Ukraine are the big food producer. Ukraine is the world's biggest producer of sunflower oil, with Russia number 2, according to S&P Global Plans. Between them they account for 60% of global production. The three countries also account for 28.9% of global wheat exports, according to JP Morgan. Russian supplies of these commodities are being restricted because of the widespread sanctions, which make it hard for the rest of the world to buy its product. Russia is a vitally important supplier of oil, natural gas, and metals, and higher prices for those commodities are sure to inflict economic damages around the world. Europe relies on Russia for nearly 40% of its natural gas and 25% of its oil. Ukraine supplies have been stopped because fighting has closed the country ports.
The difference between Russia and Ukraine have been reflected for decades in their music, literature, cuisine, and portrayed in film. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is the latest chapter in the deep political and geographical confrontation that has been widely reflected in film and literature, but has transcended international relations to affect many cultural issues. In 2020, Maria Pasenti, director of the Ukrainian Institute in London, presented her research under the title Cultural Resilience and Social Transformation in Ukraine, published in Chatham House, in which she summarized that since 2014, after the Revolution of Dignity, also known as the Euromaidan, cultural projects have strengthened Ukraine's civic identity helped to counter Russia's effort to use identity and history and weapons against our country. This has come about primarily thanks to the efforts of cultural industry representatives who went beyond post-Soviet cultural management schemes and found new models of cooperation between artists, civil society, state, and patrons. These reforms in the cultural field were much more successful than in other branches of social life, which allow us to speak now of a cultural boom. State institutions were created or renewed to set standards, establish transparent funding conditions, and cooperation between the cultural community and donors.